Hi guys, welcome to another weekend roundup where I look back at the past couple of weeks in gaming and see what's been going on that I think is interesting. I'm going to start at the beginning, as I often do, with the Games Workshop. They've advertised their Feast of Bones, which is a new way of collecting the next Chaos Army, or the new Chaos Army. It's quite good because you can see that it's a starter set for the Ossiarch or and ogres for the Ogre Kingdom. So it's a great way of getting into the Ogre Kingdom one. I'm just going to expand the picture there. As you can see, we've got some nice ogres there and a bunch of the Ossiarch guys. It says a lot that they don't look tiny compared to the ogres, so it gives you an idea. You're getting a lot of plastic in terms of just raw amount for your money. It's also allowing them to include some of the older models that they created for the end times and stuff like that. For those of you who aren't familiar, the new undead army for the Ossiarchs is basically another undead lord, because you've got obviously you've got Nagash, you've got Nefertiti, you've got Vlad, or the Von Carstein. Is it Vlad Von Carstein? You've got the Von Carstein vampires and all that. You've got Lady Orlando, who who came out last year, I believe, and now you've got these guys. Lady Orlando is very much about picking up people from around the realm, so she's very much kind of your old-fashioned necromancer style army with ghosts and wailing creatures and creatures with scythes and that's very cool. This one, the Ossiarch one, is much more about, you know, golems and undead constructs and things like that, kind of your Frankenstein looking things, only bigger, badder and nastier. They've been pushing that recently because it's their latest one, and this new box set, Feast of Bones, sorry, is going to be a great way of getting hold of that. It is a starter set by the looks of it, because it does have a little book in there which says core rules. So it's always good to know that. First chance to get your hand on the Ossiarch Bone Reapers with Vorkmortian, currently on sale. I'll try that again. Currently only available in this set, and the Necropolis, Stalkers and Mortek Guard being released shortly after. Also, your first opportunity to grab the Ogre, because they're not called Ogres anymore, they're called Ogors, O-G-O-R, Moortribe Tyrant, which is this guy, who is another fantastic looking model. I do like the Ogre tribes, they are very vicious. Also, you've got this stuff, which is fantastic. You're looking at the multi-face stuff and some of the armour. It does seem like somebody's watched the Chronicles of Riddick before making these guys, but that doesn't stop them being cool. And you've got some fantastic dice coming with it. Your standard sort of AOS war scrolls there. So it's a lot of really, really cool stuff. Some new spell tokens and other stuff that's going to be available. It's also kind of forerunning Destruction Battle Tome for the Ogre tribes, which hopefully is going to see the Ogres getting some more love, and again some fantastic dice. If any of you guys wonder why I use this and hold it up to the screen instead of just putting it on the screen, that's because I haven't got a laptop worthy of the name or anything really with the technology capable of doing this. I could possibly do it on my phone, but it's a tiny screen and I wouldn't be able to see properly what I was doing. Maybe one day I'll be able to afford a decent laptop, but today is not that day. So I'm reduced to just holding this up and showing you guys. But, you know, a lot of really cool stuff. There's also some more stuff coming out for Lord of the Rings. You've got some card packs coming out with Lord of the Rings, and again, some purpose-built card sleeves. GW have been leaning more into the purpose-built card sleeves recently, I think primarily because it is a good way of making money. They have experimented with getting other companies to make card sleeves for them. There have been a couple of other companies who've been doing sort of GW themed card sleeves. I think it was Ultra Pro that had Chaos God themed card sleeves and things like that you could use for some of the GW card games, or to store other basic things in if you wanted to. I don't know who's making these for GW. I suspect they're not made in-house, but it doesn't say on the bit that I can see. You got some more stuff coming out for the Middle-earth game, which is cool. Everybody I know who's played the Middle-earth game says it's a really well-built system. What else we got coming out? We've got some interesting stuff for the Space Marines. Just waiting for that to load up. We've got the Imperial Fist. Oh, sorry. We've got the Imperial Fist. Where are we? Codex Supplement, which has come out for pre-order, I believe, this Friday just gone. So that's going to be coming out next week. That's going to be interesting for anybody who plays Imperial Fist or a successor chapter. I don't know if it's got much in there on the Crimson Fists, or whether or not, because they're such a famous and well-known chapter, whether or not they'll be getting their own one. But you've got Indomitable, which is a warlord ability. The Imperial Fists... sorry, when resolving an attack made against this warlord, a modified roll... and a modified wound roll of 1 to 3 always fail. That doesn't make sense in English. I know what they mean. Always fails, or an unmodified wound. What? When resolving attacks made against this model, an unmodified wound roll of 1 to 3 always fail, or always fails, maybe. Irrespective of any abilities that weapon or abilities that the weapon or model making that attack may have. Not sure if the English is right on that. But the ability is good. You've got a 50% chance of just failing a wound roll no matter how strong you are. The only ones that's really going to affect are really strong guys, and instead of getting a 2+, you now need a 4+. So that's pretty good. Legacy of Dawn. Imperial Fists are peerless siegers, demonstrating an uncanny knack for identifying and exploiting weak spots. While Devastator Doctrine is active, when resolving an attack made with a heavy weapon by a model with this ability against a vehicle or a building unit, add 1 to the damage characteristic of that weapon for the attack. So, nice for damage weapon. Nice for weapons that have high damage. It'll let them get through armor just that bit better. Or, kill something just that bit better. Possibly even nicer for weapons that have low damage or medium damage or even high damage, but multiple shots. Because, if you're adding 1 to the damage characteristic and you get, and you've got 1 shot, but, it does 10 damage, that's 11 damage. If you're adding 1 to the damage characteristic and it's got it's got 3 shots that do 5 damage, you're getting 3 on there. So that's that's pretty cool. Rack and Ruin. Rack and Ruin is a warp charge of 6. Select one building within 18, and visible. Or select one enemy that was wholly within or on a terrain feature that was an 18 and visible. Roll 9d6, adding 1 to the result if the unit you select was a building. For each roll of 5+, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So 9d6 for each roll of 5+. You're going to get some mortal wounds there. I mean, that's a third. A third of 9 is 3. If everything rolls out as it should, that's 3 mortal wounds. That's not bad at all. That's 3 unblockable, undefendable wounds there. That's hench. And let's be honest, we're far more likely to roll absolutely no wounds or 9 wounds than we are to ever roll the average. So that's going to be something that is vicious. Eye of Hypnoth, which is another cool thing. Praetorian's Wrath. Yeah, loads and loads of cool stuff. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, no, yep, Crimson Fist is going to be within this one. Sorry, I hadn't read too much of it. But yeah, there's a nice picture of the Crimson Fist there. Crimson Fist Ceremony of the create their para chapter and receive additional background and rules in the Codex Supplement, Imperial Fists. The book also includes data sheets for the chapter master Pedro Cantor, who is a boss of a chapter master. and anybody who says otherwise is a cunt. New warlord traits and relics, such as this fist and power fist, which is the Fist of Vengeance. Torgaradon. Oh, Torgaradon. Yeah, basically there is a ton of awesome stuff in this. If you're an Imperial Fist or a player or a fan, or you're a fan of any of the subsequent Imperial Fist successor chapters, this is probably going to be a must-have. Let's scroll down, continue. It's not saying anything about Black Templars. I assume they're going to get their own because they've gotten a lot of love from GW previously. But yeah, this looks fantastic. Makes me want to run a Crimson Fist army. So yeah, anything that gets you that excited, it's got to be good, right? I'm hoping to go against it at some point and see how it rolls. Being a Space War player, can't make it myself. So that's that's pretty cool. We've got some more on the Psychic Awakening. We've got Into the Void, which you can download, so I'll just do that, which is a nice piece of fiction just to get your brain going. I really do like a lot of the works of fiction they're putting out, just because they really get you into the sort of the mindset. I've said it before and I'll probably say it 100 more times. If you're not going pew 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 and daka 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 when you're playing a game of 40k, are you really playing a game of 40k at all? You can do it for the mass, you can do it for the tactical challenge, but the best way to do it, in my opinion, is to do it for the fun. So that's pretty cool. Moving on, onto one of my favourite websites for extra bits, Puppets War. Puppets War were some more extra bits and bobs to use on their models or add to your models if you want to add bits and pieces. We've got a nice, well, that's what I was thinking about it. We've got an awesome battle standard there, which is going to look pretty fantastic on any model. It's got the hand in question is sort of mechanical looking marine style hand from their sci-fi models, and they've got a more classic hanging down banner as well, which I think again that's going to look fantastic on models. A lot of the GW banners are really, really good and really, really detailed. Sometimes a little bit over detailed. So if you're looking for something a little better that you can really add some more of your own touch to, you can do a lot worse than have a look at Puppets War. Forge World. A lot of new stuff from Forge World. Sorry, just waiting for a moment. If you're a Titanicus player, they've got a lot of Titanicus scenery. Be aware, if you're not a Titanicus player, the scenery is going to be tiny. I looked at a lot and thought, wow, that's cool scenery. And then I looked at places and thought, that doesn't make sense. And then my brain reread the words Titanicus and went, oh, of course. So this scenery looks good. It's a fair deal. It looks like a great deal because you're looking at it going, £48 for that lot. Yeah. Until you realise, it's tiny pieces of resin. It is resin, so be aware if you get any warping, which you don't tend to get from Forge World these days, not like the bad old days. If you do get something with warping where it is quite thick, you might not be able to fix it with hot water, which is, if anybody's unaware, when you put resin in hot water, it becomes malleable. If you put it in water that's scalding hot, it will flop about like a rag. But if you put it in water that's quite warm, cup of tea hot, it becomes very malleable and you can straighten bits out and things like that. But the thicker it is, the more likely you are to damage it when you're attempting to straighten it out. With stuff that thick, if it does get you, because it's going to be small bits but chunky bits, be very wary of straightening it out. I would probably, if you do get any warp with these, I would probably just send them straight back to Forge World and ask for a replacement, which Forge World will almost certainly do for you. They don't tend to have a problem with that. I said the bad old days there. There was a time when Forge World had a lot of casting problems. And I think their customer service guys just got tired in the end and started advising people repair their own models and dip them in hot water and things, rather than people kind of getting miffed with them. I'm happy to say that was years ago, decades ago, and Forge have very much learned from their mistakes, and if you have a problem with it, you can almost always get it fixed with a minimal fuss. As I say though, if you get something like something this, for example, holding a banner, and it's bent and it's resin, you can often fix it using hot water. Always contact your supplier, whether it's a friendly local gaming shop or whether you've bought it direct from GW, Cromwell or Cromlech or anybody else first, and ask what they want you to do, because some of them, if you try and fix it and you make it worse, will turn around and go, we're not replacing something you fucked. Basically because people fuck stuff and then want replacements. Some of them will say, stick it in warm water, you can straighten it out easily enough. If it breaks, we'll replace it, but it saves us sending you one, and it saves you having to wait for one. So you always speak to your manufacturer first, your supplier first. But if you get it's a useful trick worth knowing if you get something second hand, or if you just can't afford for whatever reason to send it back and have it reposted to you. And some people can't. They order something for a tournament, they get it with a day or two to spare, and they can't, and it's a little warped, and they can't afford to basically be sending it back. In other cases, for example, Final Fantasy released a Rune Wars game, which was actually a pretty good game. Didn't really take off, which was a shame. But because the plastic was softer, a lot of their models came with bent spears and bent lances, and it didn't look too great. Replacing the whole sets would have been just too much effort if you bought them, as I did, and just sticking the guys in hot water and going with all the lances, sticking it in hot water, going straight in, put it on the side, straight in, put it on the side. It's a great way of getting things fixed if it's just not worth the effort. But like, as I say, the thicker the plastic, the more likely something is to go a bit skew if you try and manhandle it yourself. So with stuff like that where it's quite thick, I'd always just go back to the your supplier and get a repair if there are any problems. Not that I'm anticipating any. Next up, we've got Bits of War, which is Cromlech Games website. Well, Cromlech Games and Tabletop Scenics. As we saw from the new things there, GW's community page wasn't full of orcs in the middle of October. Colour me sad and disappointed. But but Bits of Wars is. I'll start slightly lower down. We've got scenery, squigs, vehicles, a guy on a wrecking ball, possibly goblin racer, a naked goblin, a naked Sali Myrus demolishing goblin, on a wrecking ball. So that's pretty cool. This stuff is their own stuff. It's their own futuristic orc stuff. So I think is what we always consider just south of copyright. So it's not a problem for GW. You've got an orc airship, an orc tank, a lot of really cool stuff that they've, here we go, an orc mine. Now I'm just going to get a picture of that out for you. Come on. Big picture. An orc airship that drops mines. I mean, look at that. That looks fantastic. A lot of really, really good stuff. GW don't seem to have made too much of a noise in October. Cromlech, on the other hand, or Bits of War, on the other hand, really seem to have picked up the slack. And if you're looking for a bargain, for €513.99, you can get their Oktoberfest bundle, which is only available in October. More details. Online only. It comes with an Orc Tiger Wagon, which is a tank, Boom Nose, Sali Myrus, Guns and Fungus, which is an Orc heavy metal band, an Orc jet fighter, an Orc heavy metal stage, an Orc sentry post, Deadard Daka Tower, Boss Skull Tower, Mech Boss Site Totem, Skull Orc trophy rack, Copter landing pad, Orc Daka platform, Orc freak tower, and an Orc mine layer. So you are getting your money's worth out of this thing, but it is €513.99. I assume it's got a comma there. I really hope that means €513.99. not 51,399 euro, because that's what a comma means over here. I'm pretty sure that's. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. The shirts are. The orc shirt's 24.99. There's no way that's 2,499. Sorry, some of the European ones use commas where we use full stops in the money. So it can be confusing, but in case you're wondering, that's Fungus and Roses, that's the Heavy Metal stage, that's the Tiger Wagon, that's the Mine Layer, that's the Jet Fighter, the Copter Landing Pad, Solymyrus, the Freak Tower, the Boom Gnaws are guys on bollocks, me brain's fell there. Damn it. Squigs, that's it, guys on Squigs. Yeah, and you've got the Orc Dakar platform there. I'm trying to show you the others, but that is the end of this page. But yeah, there is a lot of stuff there. Come on, page 2. Can I get to page 2? Also, oh great, added to orders with Oktoberfest product. They've got an orc. They've got Guns and Fungus CD. I'm assuming. I have no idea what music's on it, but that'll be interesting. Oh, there you go. Orc Dakar Tower, Orc Sentry Post, Skull Tower, Trophy Tower, Boss Tower, Dakar Platform. So yeah. Freak Tower, which are for the Orc Wizards. Yeah, so you're not getting a lot of basic orcs. You have to buy those separately, but frankly, I'd imagine it's the extra stuff that really sells the best for them anyway. So, and bearing in mind, I would imagine, I've been told that they're resin, so that's not bad considering resin prices tend to be more expensive than plastic. If you've got the money and you want to spend on that, it's a great way to make up your October. And who doesn't want a great way to make up their October? So check that out for Cromlech. A lot of cool stuff available from them there. As I say, kind of making up where GW haven't really hammered into October this year or last year. What else have we got going on? Mantic brought out some cool stuff. The Northern Alliance set has come up for preview. Pre-order. So not a massive Mantic player, although I do like some of their stuff. You've got some ice golems there that look cool but weird. You've got an ice crossbow. I'm trying to get a bigger picture. Can I have a bigger picture? Come on, Mantic, let me see your stuff. No. Yeah, Elemental Ice Regiment. Just looks weird, frankly. Yeah, but you've got a hero there, a couple of units of troops and other things that you've got. They've got guys on bears coming up for pre-order. So a lot of cool stuff there. A weird crossbow that's made of ice and shoots ice. Yeah, that's pretty cool. If you're playing Mantic Kings of War, that's awesome. If you're playing 9th Age, that's awesome. If you're unfamiliar with 9th Age, it's basically 9th edition Fantasy Battle. Yeah, Fantasy Battle is the previous iteration of AOS. It died out because it had to. It wasn't making money. There were many reasons for this. I'm quite happily blather on about how the fact that they were running Fantasy Battle alongside Lord of the Rings, and which then became The Hobbit. So they had 2 Fantasy Battle products, one based on the Lord of the Rings universe, the other based roughly and loosely on the Lord of the Rings universe when it first started out. If you're not familiar with Fantasy Battle, the original Warhammer, when it first started out, it was very roughly based on the idea of being able to play Lord of the Rings battles. Hence, it had orcs, dark elves, and weird things like that. Orcs, elves, and humans, and goblins, and things like that in it. It wasn't an exact copy of Lord of the Rings. It was just south of copyright, which is always one of the reasons why I'm never that worried about people copying GW, because a lot of GW stuff came from other places to begin with. Their original business model was literally, we're going to let you play your fantasies. You like Alien, here's Space Hulk. Here's Space Hulk. You like Mad Max, here's Dark Future. You like Lord of the Rings, here's our here's Warhammer. You like Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy films. You like Hawk the Slayer. Here's the Warhammer Fantasy role-playing game. They did a lot of amazing stuff, but it was designed to allow you to play in your dreams and in your sort of the fantasy realms that you loved. So it did borrow heavily from the things that influenced those fantasy worlds, if not directly taking in some cases. So I'm never that fussed if somebody's doing something similar to GW. Yeah, if they're directly ripping GW off, that's not cool. That's how you end up wrecking the whole gaming, the whole gaming community for the lot of us. If nobody can make money, then no one's going to make product. But if they're doing stuff that's similar or works with, then fair play to them. What else have we got? Dark Flow from Plasticraft Games is now fully funded. It's a nifty looking Kickstarter. Again, as with a lot of others, kind of trying to mix sci-fi. Let me see if I can get some better pictures on this. Yeah, there you go. Looks better that way. Kind of trying to mix sci-fi with some elements of fantasy. Compared to game 1 to 4 players, you've got some cool stuff, some awesome wandering monsters and fantastic miniatures. A lot of stuff that you're going to be, a lot of tokens encounters, but everything is token encounter heavy these days. But again, a lot of cool miniatures which are going to be useful for this game or useful in other games if you want to, those things there would go straight into D&D quite happily. Some cool models. Some cool models and cool miniatures that are going to be available. You're still able to pledge, but it is fully funded. It's also always nice to see something that is fully funded, just because it allows, it lets us know that it is actually coming out. If you're not familiar with Plasticraft Games, they've been around a while. They are good at making models. They are good at making a lot of stuff. They started off doing plastic art and cardboard scenery, which was very quick, very easy to assemble. Some of it was unpainted, so you could paint it, but a lot of it, because it was made out of cardboard or plastic art, was pre-printed, so when you assembled it you didn't have to paint it and it looked fantastic. So they're fairly competent at the manufacturing side, and being as they've got the money side, I would imagine that's going to rock and roll quite easily. It's, as you can see, it's a large hexagonal grid strategy game, so that's something that I'm looking forward to, and hopefully it's something that I'm looking forward to. Possibly won't be able to get it myself or buy it myself, but I'm hoping that my friends will. I'm looking at you, Aaron. I say that he's not spending that much more. He's not spending that much money on every game these days. But yeah, the core box comes with 85 miniatures, 84 cards, 233 cardboard elements, and 93 other elements. So yeah, it's another fantastic self-contained complex game that's going to be able to keep you going and keep your friends entertained for a whole evening. I really like the games that you can really dive into, spend several hours playing, and then set up the next game and do it again. So that's pretty cool. What else have we got? The Fighting Fantasy Kickstarter was funded. Yeah, Fighting Fantasy Legends. 28mm resin miniatures. You can see it states there, funded in an hour. Oh crikey, it's in German. Why are you in German? Why are you in German and English? You can still fund it, so check that out. As you can see, it is based on the Steve Jackson Fighting Fantasy books, and the Jackson Livingstone Fighting Fantasy books. Not to be confused with the Steve Jackson that funded GW. I've been advised there are in fact 2 Steve Jacksons in the world. but it's a bunch of miniatures and that based in the Fighting Fantasy universe, giving you a lot of really cool stuff. The miniatures are well built. Oh, the wheelies! And the miniatures are well built and well designed looking. I haven't obviously been out. I haven't actually seen the plastic, so I don't know how good it's going to look. How good it is going to be with the plastic. But you can see there they've got quite deep cut detail there, so it's probably going to be fantastic either way. Yeah, you've got a lot of quad Shoggoth. You've got a lot of awesome models there, which are going to be, frankly, a great addition to pretty much anybody's set. You can still throw money at it and still try and get stuff. Again, they're designed around the books. I don't believe there's actually a game there at all. It doesn't do anything. It is just a metric ton of models based around the Jackson Livingston Fighting Fantasy games. If you haven't, Fighting Fantasy books, sorry. If you're not familiar with the books, they're basically multiple choice books. Books tend to be from about that thick to about that thick. But realistically, you only read about a third to a quarter of the book at a time, because every page you are presented with a, do you go left? Do you go right? Do you attack? Do you run away? And you basically made your choice and you navigated your way through the adventure. There was a combat system using dice. Creatures had a toughness, you had a strength, you rolled the dice. If your combined score was better than them, you did them a wound. If their combined score, if their preset score was better than you, they did a wound. So it was all really cool. Fantastic if you're an 8-year-old kid. Nostalgic if you're a grown-up like me. So if you were a fan of those books, check that Kickstarter out. If you weren't a fan of those books, check out the books and then check the Kickstarter out. There's a lot of reviews out there for the books. I can't remember what her website's called now because she's changed it, but I know Alison Saib had a bunch of reviews on a website. On the website, I don't know what it's called though, but I'm sure it'll be easy to find them if you look them up. If that's the current name. Failing that, go on YouTube. There'll be a lot of reviews out there for the books to give you an idea of what you're looking at. What else have we got? Oh, yeah, but Warlord Games are heading back into Mega City. The Mega City 1 pack, which is the Judge Dredd pack, has come up for pre-order. I'm just trying to going to try and expand on that. As you can see, we've got, you've got the Fatties. That's what they're called. I didn't know them that. You've got Judge Dredd, and you've got Judge Death, Judge Dredd, and a lot of the others. Yeah. You've got a lot of the Mega City guys, and the comportment, which is the rule book for it. There's a couple of sets. You've got the launch deal, which Mega 1, which you can see contains a ton of stuff. Then you've got the Mega Judges, which just contains the judges and some of the other cool bits and pieces. Which contains judges and the other cool bits and pieces. The Mega Villains, which contains the villains, as you'd expect, and the rules. I haven't played this version of the game, but it's supposed to be basically a small to medium skirmish game involving using the 2000 AD Judge Dredd franchise. So you're going to have your judges. You're going to have I can't remember what any of these guys are called off the top of my head. Now you're going to have your judges. You're going to have your villains. You're going to have like the block gangs. You're going to have a league of fatties and things like that. So you're going to have a lot of stuff that you can use. You've got the street judges, special edition Dredd vs Death. A lot of stuff there. And that's just the starter set. So if you're a fan of Judge Dredd, which I know I am, that looks pretty cool. They've gone. This isn't their first attempt at a Judge Dredd game. Warlord had previously done a Judge Dredd game. Unfortunately, it didn't really sell very well. It was a fantastic game. Had a very solid. So how to phrase this? It had a cult following, which is to say, it had a small bunch of followers who were very, very dedicated to the game, who really loved the game. Now, the reason for that was fairly easy to see if you ever bought or sold the game, and I did sell it for a short period. The models were very, very stylistic, and what that basically meant was that they looked like rubbish models, but in fact they weren't. If anybody's read the Judge Dredd books, the old Judge Dredd books in the 1980s, it has a very sort of rough and ready style, and what Warlord Games have basically done is given those comic books to a sculptor, or given pictures from those comic books, I'm guessing, to a sculptor and said, make this. And whoever they did, it's obviously an incredibly talented sculptor, because he did. He made things that looked exactly like they'd been ripped out of the pages of a 1980s comic book. And a particularly crude one of that, because the Judge Dredd comic books were intentionally done in a very crude, very rough and ready way. To basically give a very punk feeling of it. They were very much like that sort of that punk art where, there are no straight lines, everything's kind of weird looking. And the models that were made looked similarly crude. And if you'd never read the comic books and didn't realise that was an actual artistic choice, it did lead to a lot of models just looking like they weren't very good. The scale of the models didn't really work. The proportions of the models were all wrong. They were very basic looking. I kind of think, I really thought it was a shame that the game didn't take off, because to my mind it was it was a kind of modelling tragedy, because somebody had obviously done what was an amazing job at literally lifting a 2D image off of a page and making it into a 3D image. They'd made these models that were fantastic, really true to source material representations to a source material that wasn't really available anymore and was beloved by a core of kind of older readers. If you look at the old 70s and 80s Spider-Man comics, they're much more primitive than the current comic books. They're much less beautiful. The poses look a lot weirder, and it was even more exaggerated in Judge Dredd as an artistic aesthetic choice. So when you translate it to models, you've got a bunch of models that didn't look very good, but were in fact amazing because they were this amazingly well done, amazingly true to life representation of something. It's just the thing that they were a representation of was deliberately and intentionally kind of crude looking. So the models just look like crude, not very well done models. Yeah, kind of. It's one of those weird little historic footnotes that just makes me kind of sad. There were a few other issues with supply, but that's primarily due to a couple of hiccups with the way you got hold of the models. For example, there are a couple of sort of basic henchman models that you had to get for gangs, and they just came in packs of henchmen. And if you had 4 different models, but they were just randomly distributed in packs. So if you had 2 of them and you wanted the other 2, the only thing you could do was order another pack and hope you got the other 2, which is a problem I had with one of my customers when he actually really wanted to buy it. He had 2 of the models, really wanted the other 2, and he resorted to buying them independently off of eBay rather than buying through the local shop or Warlord Games, because Warlord Games couldn't guarantee he was going to get them. Not that I blame him. It was the only way that he could get the models was to find somebody who had them, no longer wanted them, and say, "Are these particular models? Okay, I'll buy them off you." I don't think Warlord does anything like that anymore. So I'd imagine you get what I'd imagine very much you get what you order, and it looks fantastic. The models look amazing. As a matter of fact, if you look at the models look kind of, you can't really see in this. Sorry, guys. Going to expand. If you look at the models do look kind of old stylistic, but they're still very well proportioned. Whereas if you look at, you look at some of the artwork of Judge Dredd. You can imagine that, and then imagine that in black and white, and even cruder and weirder. And you can see how some of it doesn't really work. I mean, here, yeah, some of it wouldn't really work on the model. I mean, here, if you look at all the models, the feet are in proportion. In the actual Judge Dredd comic books, the ankles got very thin and the legs got very thin, and the feet were actually exaggeratedly large, which just made it look bad on models. So these models look fantastic. I'd imagine they are fantastic. Warlord are really good at modelling and at manufacturing. Their manufacturing process is well proven at this point. Good, solid plastic models go together well, have good detail, and take paint well. So I imagine this game is going to be pretty fantastic. And yeah, I mean, just look at the Lawbringer bike. That looks fantastic. But again, you can even see with the Lawbringer bike that it has a certain sort of primitiveness to it, which is very much part of the Judge Dredd aesthetic. But it's still it's still a well-made, well-proportioned model in this case. Which takes us on to the final thing. Going up for Kickstarter on the 29th, which is in a few days' time. We're on, what, the 21st, 22nd? I've discussed it previously, but Infinity's Defiance. It's a dungeon crawl game based in the Infinity universe. You can see from the artwork that we've got guys straight out of the Infinity games. You've got multiple characters there. We've got the concept art for them at the moment. We don't know what they're actually going to look like. But we've got fairly solid representations of each faction there. What have we got? Villains, Shazvasti. He's a villain. And then MPG. That's an MPG. And heroes. And that's a hero. Got a lot of cool stuff there going through there. A lot of different guys. We're just on concept art at the moment, but we can see we've got some hackers there. We've got what is either a wolver or a dog warrior prior to transformation there. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be a fantastic game. It's on Kickstarter. Well, I say it's on the Kickstarter. It's on the Is that Kickstarter? Yeah, it's going to have a Kickstarter page. It's going on Kickstarter on the 29th. If you're a fan of Infinity, check that out. As I said on previous things, it looks like Corvus Belli are doing the quite sensible thing of multi-platforming a lot of their games, by which I mean that you buy a game and big chunks of that game are going to be useful in multiple different platforms. They've done the same with Aristea. The Aristea models are useful in Aristea and their main Infinity game. Or if you buy them individually as Infinity models, some of them are useful in Aristea, depending on which models you get. The models in this are supposedly going to be fully compatible with Infinity. Whether or not any of them are compatible with Aristea remains to be seen. But it does mean that if you buy this game, you're going to have extra stuff for your Infinity if you play Infinity, or it's going to give you a nice starting point to play Infinity if you want to use it as a jumping off platform for Infinity. I really approve of a lot of companies doing this, just because it gives me and you, the guys buying it, a lot of use out of our models, and it does actually negate a certain level of the risk. Obviously, when buying new games, you've always got a risk that that game's not going to work out. I mean, we can sit there and go, oh yeah, Defiance looks like an amazing game. It's totally going to be going in 10 years' time. But we don't know that. When GW started doing Lord of the Rings, I don't think they were planning to still be doing it now under the guise of The Hobbit. And I certainly don't think it was their intent that it would adversely affect their Warhammer Fantasy game. Which, there are a few people that share my belief that one of the bigger nails in Warhammer Fantasy's coffin was that it was running next to the Lord of the Rings game. Two fantasy games couldn't really compete. There are other problems, like you needed a £400 army to start off with, which basically meant you spent £400, spent 6 months of getting the shit kicked out of you by highly experienced players, and then usually threw your army in the bin. Or then started to get good enough to not get the shit kicked out. The main reason it stopped, it was, I think as I previously said, the money. It was something like 50% of GW's manufacturing costs and 15% of their sales. So that's, I think, what finally killed it. But, fortunately with this, it's not even on the same level. so it's not going to compete. But it does mean that sorry, twitching. Because it's a compatible game, it reduces any chance of it competing with the main game. So you're not going to damage one by buying the other. You're not going to create vampire sales by having two separate but similar games, because the models are rather compatible. Because the models are compatible, sorry, and because the models are compatible, the same with GW. As I say, it's a similar tactic to what GW did with a lot of their other games. You had the Gene Stealer game, you had the Black Fortress games where the models can be used in 40k. You had the you've had several of the other games that GW released. The Warhammer Quest games where there were rules in White Dwarf to make your models compatible with AOS. As I say, it means that it protects us, the customer, from that certain risk of investing in a new system, because we've all invested in a new system. For example, I played Gates of Antares, and that seems to have gone nowhere. I invested a lot of money, split the main box on my Ash, and nobody locally really seems to play it anymore. I bought Rune Wars off Fantasy Flight. Fantastic game. Again, didn't go anywhere. I don't think they even make it anymore. And by making games compatible like this, I think it gives us more back. It gives you and me, the people who buy the games, more bang for our buck. And it protects us, because if Defiance turns out not to be what people want, if it turns out not to be that popular, and you or I have already bought a set, if we're already playing Infinity, which I already do, and I imagine a lot of people who are going to be attracted to this game do, or if you're thinking of playing Infinity, it means the models, which are probably the most expensive part of the set that you buy, aren't junk. They're not some models you might be able to use in something else later. They are models that you can use in a pre-existing game that has already been running for years and is fairly solid. And I really like that, because, as I say, it gives you more bang for your buck, and it gives you kind of a bit of protection from new game death, which is always an unfortunate part of gaming. It's an amazing part of, it's an amazing time to be getting involved in the gaming world, because there are so many new games out there. There are so many games out there that are coming out that are really good, that are really well thought out. But it's also going to be a thing that new games, the more new games come out, the more new games are going to die, because we don't have time to play every game. Some games have got a really set world or really set universe, or something that really holds you on. Again, referring back to the Lord of the Rings game or the X-Wing game, those guys are going strong because they've got a solid set fan base that would play them whatever. Other games take more risk and might see expansions over time, or might not, depending on their financial stability and the stability of the franchise or the company. An example of that is Night Models bought out a Marvel game, and then because Night Models and Marvel parted ways, they couldn't keep it going. They managed to keep hold of the Batman miniature game, and they've kept that going, so that looks fantastic. And there is another Marvel miniature game. So there are other Marvel miniature games out there, and I believe there's yet another one coming out soon, which I'll have a look for and possibly do something about next weekend roundup. But the Night Models Marvel game sadly died out. Which was sad, because it was a simple but a lot of fun game. So you really have no idea of knowing what's gonna live and what's gonna die out. So Night Models managed to protect its customers by going, you can still use these models. We're running the DC game. Yes, Marvel has no support, but the characters are portable over to the DC game if you want to do crossover games. But that wasn't, I'm not entirely sure a lot of people really appreciate that. But in this case, where you can completely use these miniatures, or you're going to be able to completely use these miniatures in Infinity, it kind of provides us with less of a risk if we're going to try out a new system. Okie dokie, that's it for this week, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. And hope to see you guys next week. As I say, hope I brought you some. My apologies. At the moment, one of my twitches is rubbing my tongue against the front of my teeth like that, or against the side of my teeth like that. And it's happening in the middle of me talking, which is making it very fucking difficult to talk. Tourette's is a bugger. My apology, guys. As I say, hope you enjoyed that. Hope I brought something to your attention that you weren't aware of. And I'll see you guys next time.
Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that video, and if you did, remember to like and subscribe to my channel. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter. Not sure why, but I am. So if you like it, see me there, and please tell your friends. Thanks very much. Bye.